Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I was very sorry about what happened yesterday, and I, believe it or not, it's just I went on and on and on, and then I saw a message from DW saying that we'd lost the signal, and so I had turned my cell phone off because I don't like it ringing, of course, when I'm doing a call, and I tried to keep it so I didn't hear him when he was hitting me to come back on. So we've got things corrected today, and DW has promised that he won't stumble across his kitchen with a bowl of breakfast cereal and spill it on the phone and short us out again today. So we're going to be good for the day to go. But DW has I think it's a positive effect on me. He definitely has a lot of effects on me, but he has a positive effect when he talks about some of these things. It gives me ideas. Now, that's an important thing because the secret to Google is they hire innovative, creative people rather than traditional workers. And that's why they're the success that they are. You read a book there's a book written by one of the co-founders of Google. I can shorten it for you to a paragraph, and that is the success of Google is all because they hired people that were creative and innovative, see? So those types are the people that really get ahead. But all of that innovation and creation comes from thought processes, and as you think, so are you. But you need to get the right kind of thinking. The stinking thinking is such that you get caught up in you can or you can't, okay? If you can't, you're right. If you can't, you say you can, you are right also. So attitude has a big thing in what you're doing, but then sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it that has an effect. And so in this business, we need to understand, I'll just pick up where I know I got to yesterday. I was talking about the structure of businesses and with Amway, with the Catholic Church, with the U.S. government, with the Metropolitan Life. It doesn't matter what, even a gas station company that has a bunch of operations around. They're all pyramid structures. And what you get is you need to get your mindset right. You need to think about this because somebody will say, oh, is this another pyramid? Another pyramid? Well, you work for a pyramid, don't you? So, and that's really true because pyramid is the most effective structure for doing business. Can you imagine if you didn't have something at the top or someone at the top running it and it was consensus by a committee, that company would fail with it. Or if there was no direction, and here it is, and everybody go, and no management and oversight. So it's the same thing with this organization. Your point of entry in a distributorship is your point of entry. And everything you build from down there is your own pyramid. That pyramid of business opportunity, of businesses that are there, they become part of a greater pyramid, and it goes up and up. And so it goes down and down with you too. So if you do this thing properly and you understand, this is if you have a president of a company, well, he talks to a bunch of vice presidents, don't they? The vice presidents, they talk to department heads, don't they? And then they talk to people that are heads of certain teams or parts of their organization. And then they talk to the general employees that are there. Well, you have the same thing going here. The only difference is when you're working for a big company, you're trading your time for dollars, and you've really sold your future because you work so many hours at so much rate and you get paid so much. What happens to all the excessive profit that comes out of that company? Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Excessive profit is great. But that profit goes to, not to you, it goes to upper management. It goes to shareholders and people of that nature, to banks, to loans, to everything else. Well, that's a lot of money that goes out. And, of course, as a consequence, employees will say, well, we're not getting paid enough. Well, you are because you're a traditional worker. If you want to change that and get paid more, you have to do something innovative, creative, outside the box. And you start trading your time for time. And when you trade your time for time, that's other people's time. And as that happens and you get numbers of people doing it and they get numbers of people doing it, it really adds up. So then comes the beauty of our network marketing, which is a pyramid. Now, remember one thing, they talk about illegal pyramids. Well, sure. How do you think legal pyramids work? A structure is there. Illegal pyramids do things outside the law. Legal pyramids do things within the law. So our pyramid structure, and I'm just giving it so you can explain to others because I know people get hit on it all the time. Our pyramid structure is the same as any kind of business that's across America and around the world virtually, other than a little individual proprietorship. But this is how big businesses are and function. We have a distinct advantage with our company that not even other network marketing companies have. See, other network marketing companies have organizations, they have investors, they have shareholders, and of course owners too with that. And there's a certain amount of the profit that goes to them, and usually 20%, 30% off the top goes out to them, and then the rest of it pays salaries and other expenses and costs and operational things. So the only thing left is for the distributors in a multi-level marketing company is to develop an organization. Now, unfortunately, most of these companies are paying an average of 3 to 4% per distributor. And the reason they do that is there's a number of things. They have bonus values that are different than qualifying values. We have a few of those where there's some products that are so extremely expensive to make and to sell. If we don't put a bonus value on them, we'll miss most of the market because even though they're so sensational, they'll price themselves out of the marketplace. So you have to use some intelligence when you're doing that, and that's what we try to do with our structure and our pricing. But most of ours is dollar for dollar what we pay. I see one that sells a tea tree oil, and you buy a certain amount of product, and they pay you 5% of 50% of the value. Their bonus value is, if you bought $100, the bonus value is $50, and they pay you 5% on that. So they show you the structure. It's 5% per level going down. Yeah, on half of the volume that you should be making. With us, here we sit, and you take a look at our organization, and I'm doing one thing that other companies are not doing, of course, because I have built a career and built a business and become very successful in it. And instead of retiring, I wanted to help other people to make their lives a lot better. So I've set the structure up. We have a massive manufacturing plant, one of the largest and most modern in America or in the world that's there. And DW's right about the labs. In fact, because my office can be a little lab. But finally, I went just through the door on the other side of my office, and I've set up a small lab over there because I get so much stuff all over the table. I need some water and stuff like that to work with. So I have my own private lab, and we have laboratories, 3 of them over in the main building to do this. Why? Because we're in a very there's a number of areas you have to have labs for to check for contamination and adulteration and concentration and many different things like that, long-term microbial studies. There's a lot to it. You don't realize. I've done all that, and I've been in this business for over 30 years, and in manufacturing even longer than that with industrial chemicals. So over the period of time, I know how to do those things. So it isn't like we're really coming from nowhere and trying to develop all this. We've been there, and we've taken everything that we've learned and developed and put it into our company. So now we have this manufacturing plant, and it makes Sisel products. It also makes products for lots of other companies and MLMs too. We make some MLM companies' product, but it's their label on it. We don't say it's made there. And our plant is called Supernaturals. So Supernaturals is a company that does private label work. We do it so that we can get volume in buying. And if we're producing for lots of companies, and if you have a giant company, and we do, we have lots of products that are manufactured in our plant that are sold around the country, around the world, in places like Walmart and Walgreens and GNC stores and Target and many others like that, and we're producing massive amounts. Why do we do it? Well, number one, it makes profit, and that profit allows us to reduce the overhead. And here's the one thing you need to understand right now. Everything I do, whether it's in private label or for Sisel, it is all done for Sisel. So my private label business, is it profitable? Yes, it's profitable and quite big, but that profit takes care of all my overhead, the overhead I have within Sisel and within Supernaturals, and with that lowers my cost of doing business, because I can kind of say, okay, here it is. This is the reservoir that provides what I need there. Now I don't have to drain Sisel for what I'm doing. And then because I manufacture the products, I have massive buying power on ingredients. Why? Because I'm making thousands of products for hundreds of companies all around the world. So when I talk to a supplier of an ingredient or get someone that can make it for us, we're talking about very big numbers, and they give us the very best prices. And we might be buying products in comparison to literally ingredients, that especially good ones, but ingredients that are 50-75% less than what competitive companies will buy them for to manufacture their products. Then when you get the formulation done, say it's for just easy figuring, a formulation costs $1 in ingredients to make, and then you got the bottle and things like that. So maybe you're in at $2, and this is most formulas that are made for other companies, I'll put it that way, are something in that range. And then we have to charge about 3 or 4 times the markup on it. So if it's $1, it's $3 or $4. If it's $2, it's $6 or $8 that we sell it to the company for, and then this company takes it and goes through their whole markup. Well, because we are debt-free, we have no debt. I went debt-free in 1974, and so I had a vow that I was going to go debt-free, and I paid my house off. I had about 30 acres of property, new cars, everything, and I owed no debt. And I've stayed that way because can you imagine the interest I've saved from being debt-free? The reason I tell you that is not say for what I've done, but to show you an example. You can do the same thing if you put your mind to it and go after it. I wasn't wealthy in 1974, but I was prosperous with it, and I took that attitude to do it. So you can really change your life if you apply it and do it in the right way. But in order to be successful, if you're running a race, if you want success, you got to have a track to run on. You can run out through the bushes and up the hills and stuff like that, sure. But what is that? It's fun maybe. But if you really want to score, then you got to have a track to run on, or you got to have a field to play on. And so we have designed that with our structure. So now I take that 3 or 4 times markup, 400% markup, and what do? I don't have $1 worth of ingredients in my formula in comparison. If it might be used for the same thing, I would have probably $4 with it. And in that type of scenario, I would have ingredients they couldn't even possibly consider using, and if they did use them, they would do it, they would fairy dust it, because it's so expensive, just so they can have it on the label. And that is the way it is commonly done all of the time. And so just for a label claim, but not with us. We're not out to promote hype and make a big profit. We're out there to hype up our products, but the product performance we want to greatly exceed what we say they can do. And so by having a 300 or 400% profit margin in there, we make it off the other companies, but on Sisel, we add it in ingredients so we can give you the greatest products the world has never seen before. Companies don't put out products like this. I had one of the major MLM companies come in, and they want us to build a weight loss powder. Now, I don't handle Supernaturals. Other people do, because I don't want to get off. I'm Sisel. And like I said, everything with Supernaturals is designed to make Sisel more successful with what we do. But we had one of the largest MLM companies around in the United States, and they're international too. They came in and they said, our weight loss products are all. So what they generally do is they go beyond that, and they'll look at a mark that's out there on the field, and then they'll do everything in their power to get that shot put to go to hit that mark. And they don't hit the mark, but they go further than they've ever gone before. It's the same thing with like broad jumping. You come down there, and broad jumpers that have jumped so far, and some of them jump out there almost 25 feet from a run, but they pick up, if they've jumped 25, they put a mark out there like it's about 26 or 27, and that's what they reach for. And because of that, they jump further, and they're more effective in what they're doing. Now, that kind of philosophy is what we have. We have products that are designed to take you far beyond where anything has ever been able to do before. And with the technologies that we have, we've got the products now to put us on what I call the road to immortality, or the highway to immortality. And this thing in the nutritional industry, years ago, it was just, you don't have enough nutrients, and so you need to supplement. That started. Then they had some things in there that were anti-aging. They would neutralize or support some of the things that in your body that were aging, and so you could neutralize some of the effects. And then they went to where they're into longevity. They were trying to extend the lifespan, and with that came health and things like that. And that's where the industry is pretty well at right now. And they've been there for a long time, about 20 years. But what we did, I evolved through all that and was ahead through that. And things that I found in the late 1980s and 1990s, those same ingredients that were in China in formulas. I went to China before people went to China, just after communism allowed people to come in. And I went in and looked at their ancient formulations and worked with them and got ingredients, and we had really great products, concentrated actives in it, but we couldn't extract and isolate them. Now we can extract them, we can isolate them, we can concentrate them, and we have the power that in products that go back historically may have been effective and designed and evolved over 6,000 years, and now we're far beyond those. We're taking these potent extracts and we're adding them to other potent extracts from other sources that we get. And so the total is greater than the sum of all the parts. You have this synergistic power. So we've moved now to the point of going from longevity to ending aging. Now, that's a major step, but now we're a step even beyond that. We can end aging, but we can regenerate youth. Now, we can't do it. You have to do it. Your body has to do it. But what we have in these formulas are ingredients which we call are precursors to that type of activity. How did you grow bigger, better, stronger when you were a child clear up to becoming an adult? Because all these biological processes were working within your body, and you ate normally, and it drove you on. Then you get to the point where you're growed, as they say, and then those systems start slowing down, shutting off, and now you're on a slippery slide that starts going down, just like you go down a slide. At first, you don't go fast. By the time you get to the bottom, you're really ripping, and it's the slippery slide to aging, disease, and premature death. And when I talk about premature death, I'm talking about death in your 70s or 80s. That's premature death, because our chromosomes and our genetic code that is within them has been mapped, and they say that you have the potential, if you haven't got good genetics, you should live at least 120 years. If you do have good genetics, you have the potential to live 150 years. The problem is medicine doesn't know how to get you there, and they don't want to, because medicines now are mostly designed on treating symptoms rather than addressing the solution to what the problem is. Why? Because if they solve it, if they cure something with you, they lose the customer. But if they treat the symptoms, they got you forever. And so the business of medicine is not in helping people. That's a side effect. That's sort of something they use. But the business of medicine is business to make money. So these big pharmaceutical companies, they don't want to put money in something they lose their customer base after they developed it and cure. So they're putting their money into making products to treat symptoms. And that probably makes sense to most of you here. And I preached this for a while, so many of you have heard that, but for a number that haven't. And it's important to duplicate it so they understand that. Because if you go into a doctor's office and you told him you want to take a supplement, you're going to say, oh, you better not do it. It might interfere with what we're doing. And I've heard that a lot of times. And people come in, and I had one person come in and say, I was feeling so good on these supplements. I went and told my doctor. He took a look and he told me, no, I got you on this treatment, and I don't want you using those supplements. They can't interfere, or they might interfere with it. He says, so I stopped using them, and you know what? I went back to where I was. I didn't feel good. I was not doing well with it. And so what do I say to the doctor? See, because people get intimidated by doctors because you think they know everything. They only know anything they know from the things that they're trained and taught. And they only have a class in the university, maybe one semester or so, in nutrition. So they know almost nothing about it. Many of you are much more experts than they are. So I told this person, I said, well, your body is your best indicator of how healthy you are, and you're feeling it. It reflects it. If you're sick, it reflects it. If you're energetic, it reflects it. If you're healthy, it reflects it. So go in and tell the doctor this. This is my suggestion, because I can't interfere and practice medicine without a license or advise them. I said, go in and say this. I was taking your formulas, taking your treatments and the prescription drugs you gave me, and I was feeling terrible and not doing well. Then I started these supplements, and boy, I felt great and was really improving with it. And then you told me to not to use them because they might interfere with what you're doing. So I stopped, and then I went back to where I was, and now I feel lousy. I'm not doing well again. So here's my question to you. Here's the ingredients. Here's the bottle on it. You take a look at the ingredients, and you tell me which ones will interfere with the medication and the techniques that you are using, and why, and then I won't use it. But if you don't, I'm going to continue to use the products because I like feeling better and getting better, and that's what they were doing. I'll continue with your treatments, but I'm going to use these products unless you can show me a reason that I should not. And you know what the doctor said to him? Well, go ahead and use them then. Because he didn't know anything about it. It's just that authoritarian thing. So here we sit with the potential that the science is, in the last 5 years, it has been gigantic, the leaps forward. We're able to look at things within the cells now that we didn't even know. We knew something was there, but we didn't know what it was. Now we're able to analyze a lot of that. And I'm talking about scientific researchers and myself. I have to follow this philosophy, but I have to extrapolate that and take it and put it into marketable products and sales for you so you can do it. So we're doing that, going along with it. But if you really went back 10 years, it would be, for me, it would be like the Dark Ages because of what the science has gone so much further advanced. But almost everybody is that's selling dietary supplements. And as I've said before on the calls, the FDA and the FTC went and analyzed the top 200 different types of ingredients, formulations, not ingredients, formulations being sold in all the major stores, Walmart, Costco, Target, GNC, et cetera, a lot of them. The top 200 selling brands used for different applications, and out of those, they found not a single one of them had enough of the active ingredient that they were advertising on to be considered a therapeutic dose. In other words, they were virtually 100% waste of money. There was maybe a little bit nothing like what you thought you were getting. We're just the opposite. we stack it to the max, and we use a wide variety of ingredients that are having effects within the entire condition or system that we're trying to address. We don't say here's a silver bullet, a magic bullet that does it. That might be the lead one, but you need to fortify it, and there's many other biological systems to go with it. And so we truly, instead of bringing out a dietary supplement and with a minimal or almost, some of them they tested of these 200, they found they had undetectable limits of it. It was there, but it means it was less than 1 part per million, and they were advertising them. If they do that, they can put it on the label. We don't. We work just the opposite, and I don't think I know anyone that really does that, but that's okay, because that gives us a distinct advantage. That gives you a distinct advantage on the products that you're using and selling and marketing to other people. Because many people are skeptical. Oh, is this another vitamin supplement? No, it's not. This is a powerful nutraceutical natural medicine that scientists are researching, pharmaceutical companies are researching, big companies big organizations like the Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical School. These types of organizations are researching this because they found they work. They're in nature, and then they're trying to find a synthetic molecule so they can patent it and make a prescription drug. But out of that, they'll never use the natural because they're God-given by law, and they don't want to spend the $2 billion and 15 years of testing to bring a product out that somebody else could make and say, here's the same thing, and theirs costs $200 and ours is $30, and that's the kind of thing we're talking about. So we research the research. We find that science, that these sciences, and some special ones that are far beyond that, have made, and many of these haven't been made to the marketplace or made it to the marketplace, but I find the scientific studies. I spend about half my time doing every day about researching science to see what's been published, because in this field, when somebody discovers something and they have, say, they're a PhD, their career is based upon, in most cases, what have you published? Let's see your work. Let's see what you know. Promotions, hirings, all that kind of thing. So they want to publish everything. Now, it's not in the best interest of the organization they're doing it for, but that's the way it is. And people sign on. We have the right to publish what we find. It can't be proprietary to the organization they're doing it for. All right, that exposes it to me. And it is to others too, but they don't really look. You don't have an intensive hunt on that from other companies as you do with what I'm doing. So now let's flip to the backside of this, the road to immortality, the highway to immortality. Immortality is in the distance, just like the mark that the broad jumper puts in the sand, or the place on the grass that the shot putter shoots for but never can get it there. Well, yes, immortality is there. We'll find it when we die and go to heaven, that's for sure, but we're not going to attain it on this earth. But I'll tell you what, living 150 years in a very healthy young body sure beats dying at 80 in the last 10 or 15 years is miserable and maybe even spent in a nursing home. That's quite a contrast. And we have the potential now, and we have to say potential because these products are out. The science is great. We've seen animal studies and even human studies on these things to validate what they can do. But quite frankly, no one's taken the supplements and lived 150 years yet. But even they just had an organization, RADFest, which is the leader in all of the world for scientific research for anti-aging, life extension, all of those things. And they had in Vegas here past week, they had that. And out of that, they showed there's some spectacular discoveries. People are publishing their papers, they're putting them there and doing things like that. And the technology is getting so far, and you have to have such lateral thinking to be able to comprehend it, especially if you're not just looking for a single ingredient, you're looking for a complete formulation, and that might be a support ingredient, it might be a major ingredient, and maybe there's more than one major ingredient. And so Yeah, I get all the studies from that and other places, and I put them together in a formulation now that where I legitimately believe we have the potential to live to be 150. Now, if you're 60, 70, 80, you're probably not going to make it. But let's say you're 60 and you're going to make it. Normally you die at average age of 80. And so, and in some places less than that. In Africa, the average age is 57, and it's the same in Russia, especially for men with that. So it's because the environment's so damaging to them, they don't have the nutrition. But anyway, so we have, if everything goes along and you listen to people say, oh, you get all the nutrients you need out of food, baloney. Food, the nutrients were eaten by generations before. Food is now, soil is now 75% deficient in nutrients. So someone that gives you that argument, oh, you don't need supplements. Yeah, can you eat 4 plates of food? I mean, who could do that other than DW? No one has the ability to sit down and eat that much food at one meal to get the proper nutrition that our ancestors got 100, 150 years ago. So you do need to supplement. So if we just supplemented the basics, yeah, we got a lot going to make it a lot healthier, but we need to take it to the next level, and the next level is on this highway to immortality that we're on. We know the factors and now that are the major factors that are causing aging, and we know how to provide precursor ingredients to the biological system to end that. And so if we end that aging, then where are we? We're on a platform that we can take and build on that, add things that take systems that have deteriorated, degenerated, and support the repair of them, the regeneration of them, and the activity of them. And so we speed it up. We bring it back to where it was. The body will do that with the support of these ingredients. I have to say that because if I say the ingredients do it or the products, it's a drug claim. So you can say support. So these ingredients support that so the body can take it in, and now you can start regenerating. You can turn your metabolism, you can back to where you were in your 20s again, and even if you're 60, you can turn it back pretty close to where you're in your 20s or 30s again. So if you're 60 and you're going to live to 80, how about if we take that and we move those goalposts and you can make it to 100 or 110, and you're much younger than you are now, and you have much more energy and all of that, and your faculties that are failing now have restored themselves. Doesn't that mean a lot? It means huge amounts. But if you're like DW saying with his son, he's 30 years old. He's going to take it. That is one smart kid. And, of course, you can get my age, that's a kid. But that's one smart kid because this guy has the potential to make that 150 years. And before he gets there, this thing is going to be off the charts, and the potential is going to be 200 or 300 years. In fact, at Radfest, Aubrey de Grey, who is the world's leading authority on life extension and anti-aging, got up and he said, the baby that is born today is going to be able to live 300 to 400 years old because of the science that's been found. And why should it not be? When you really think about it, the inevitability of death or aging really is not set. It's simply, aging is not a disease, it's decay and degeneration. So if you end the decay and you increase the regeneration and the repair and the activity, what's going to happen? Instead of sliding down that slippery slope towards aging, disease, premature death, you're going to be on the escalator going up to younger, healthier, longer living life and bodies that are viable and functions and brain and all of that. And that's the mission that we're on here with what we're doing. So now we have a lot of products, not like other companies. We don't have all these supplements, little this and that and that. We're not selling vitamin C or vitamin D or things like that. Leave that to buy it cheap and use those if you want it. But what we're doing is we're moving into the most highly advanced nutraceutical, natural, complementary medicines that have been found. And in many cases, no one else has it, and we get the ingredient extracted in the form that's most effective, use it in the highest concentration, use it with other ingredients to support the same purpose of it, and we come out with formulations that are smashing, devastating. But just like you age, it's a slow process. You lose, after you hit 20, you start losing 8 to 10% of your functionality every 10 years. So when you're 30, you're down 8 to 10%. You don't notice much. 40, you know, you pick up that next 10 years. Now you're not down that 10%, you're down 20%, see? And some things are deteriorating fast like that. You go on to 50, where are you there? See, now you've lost another 10% of what you have. So what we're doing is we're taking a look at those factors that are within the cells, within the systems, and building products to support that the way it did when you were young. And so we're talking about born again in a literal sense from the support these precursors give to it. So there are 3 major ingredients that we make that are, well, 2 we make and 1 we're going to make with it. And we think this will not just put you on the highway to immortality, but it will speed you up like a lightning bolt going down it. But it takes a while to get up, because when you've been gradually going down, 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 suddenly you don't jump right up to where you were, but you start going up, and it takes some time, just as Debbie was saying here today, it takes some time for these things to work. Take it for 6 months. Some people are seeing results fast in a month, some in 2 months with that kind of thing, some longer, but everyone has different biologies and different nutrition and things and environmental damage or not with what they're doing, and so all those things, genetic code comes into it. So some people may not, their systems might be working fairly well, but they're still in decline. And I talked to one guy, said, I've been off for 6 months, I haven't felt anything. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to continue. I said, well, it's your choice. I said, within a year or 2, you're going to notice significant improvement over where you are right now. If you quit right now, what you've done is you probably age reversed yourself in 6 months about 2 years. You're going to lose all that. And then for the next year, you'll age 2 years faster. So you lose that 2 years, and then every year you'll be aging by about 2 years, and you're back on that track. And when I explained that to him, he said, I'm going to stay on it. I said, this isn't smoke and mirrors, flim-flam scam. This is real solid science proven by independent third-party researchers, and we take those discoveries and put them together. So here's where we're at. We have the age pill. We have TSX. Both of those work together. And we also have a product that we're going to name, but right now we're calling it Product X. So those 3 products will have you blazing down the highway to immortality. The age pill will put you up and going fast and support the regeneration of decrepit or declining stem cells. Stem cells, for those of you that don't know, they're the cells that made you. At one time at conception, you had 1 cell, and that cell was a stem cell. And it started creating all these different cells in your body. And when that started to happen, it made other new stem cells, so that where you're sitting right now, from having 1 stem cell, you have about 220 different varieties of them throughout your body. In fact, the brain, which is the most complicated of all your organs, has got 67 different types of stem cells to produce the cells that wear out, the replacement cells. And they do wear out. Some wear out very quickly, some are slow. A heart takes about 3 years. The stomach takes about 7 or 8 days because of the harsh acids. And skin is, if you're young, it's a month. If you're older, it's 4 months. And it's all gone. That's a lifetime of it. So stem cells have different purposes, different activities. But over a period of time, they take in so much nutrition and so much oxygen and glucose for energy to react, explode, to oxidize it, to create it, that it's like your car engine. It starts wearing out. It starts building up with sludge. Things start becoming inefficient. But the stem cell is still there, and it's there with all the basic components. So this is where the age pill is. If it's coming down, if it hasn't gone dormant, stem cells normally just don't die. They become dormant after they get to such a low level. and we'll talk about that in a second. But if you're on the way down and your cells are in senescence, when they become dormant, they're senescent. That's the difference between dormant. So the amount of stem cell activity you have when you're 30, you're down probably 20% of stem cell activity. By the time you're 40, you're down as much as 40 to 60% of activity, and 50 is worse. And by the time you get between 60 and 70, you're down to 5% or less. And in the 70s, most people are around 2% activity. I mean, they're skin on bones, and they have no energy. They can't hear you. They can't see things well. They get fat from because of no metabolism. And guess what? They're ready to go. But if we could intercept that, if we could take that declining stem cell, and that's what we do with the mission of the Age Bill, is to go in there and to address the three major components that are in it that are causing damage. The first one is you brush your teeth, don't you, to get them clean and to get the plaque off. Well, that's because bacteria are feeding on sugars, and they oxidize it and leave a plaque. That happens within the stem cells. Stem cells are taking in sugars, glucose, and they're taking in oxygen. They reoxidize it, and it releases the energy the same way that oxygen gas explodes in an engine, only on a minor scale. And when that's done, what happens to the car? The exhaust goes out the tailpipe. What happens with the cell? That has to work its way out and through, but in the meantime, because it's a harmful toxic oxidizer, it starts getting sticky, and you start to molasses up, if you will, and so it starts coating the protein structures, and the longer you live, the more of this plaquing that occurs. Some's getting out because the cell's designed to remove it, but a lot of it is plaquing up and building up, and these protein structures that you have within the stem cell itself now are becoming caked up, and it becomes rigid. They can't function, and of course, what is that? A tremendous decline in age. So that's called glycation, because it's oxidation of glucose. Glucose, glycation. Okay, so with that, now we found the science that supports the stem cell's biological systems, and we can break down, or not we, but the body can break down if you give the right type of precursor ingredients to it so it can function. And those natural processes that were working so good when you're young now can be accelerated back. You can literally catapult yourself back into where those stem cells start removing all this plaque, discharging it, and these protein structures can now not only function, they can be repaired and regenerated and all of that. So that's the first major thing. The other thing is your cells, which if you look at cells like an egg yolk, or like an egg, it has a yolk and it has a white. Stem cells the same way. The yolk, so to speak, in a stem cell is like the nucleus. That's where everything goes on, is controlled and all that. So what's the stem cell doing? It's making a new cell, a replacement cell for those that are wearing out. So stem cells, over a period of lifetime, you got 30 or 40 trillion in your body of cells, but they're all being lost at different times. So these stem cells have to replace them. And let's say your overall body count, and I don't know the figure on that, but let's say you had 40 trillion cells, and on an average they lasted a year. That means those stem cells would have to regenerate a new you every year, and that takes enormous amounts of nutrition in it, enormous amounts of oxidation, and so you get that build up, that plaquing. Okay, now we have the system to go in and remove that glycation, that plaquing. But the other thing that happens with all the nutrients that go in, they're compounded, and it makes a new cell, and it divides off. But in making that cell, there's a lot of waste products. There's a lot of reactions that go on within the biology of the stem cell. So you build up cellular garbage. It's called lipofuscin. It's lipo, or oily. And some of those components, there are portals, openings in the cells that the lipofuscin, or the cellular garbage, actually are pushed out, and they're broke down by enzymes, and they get out of the body. But over a period of time, they found a certain type that is oil soluble, or an oily material, they glue together, and pretty soon they become so big they won't fit through the opening, and then they keep attaching more and more molecules like it, and pretty soon your cytoplasm in the cell, where all the nutrients, oxygens have to come in and all the waste has to go back out, becomes sludgy and thick and brown, and you can't get the nutrients in it. So in practical terms, you got to drain the swamp so you can get the functions back where they are. So we have a series of precursor ingredients that go in and give super nutraceutical power to the systems that will break down those types of compounds and do it faster than when you were younger, I think. That's my estimate. But anyway, with that, break it down faster, so we start draining that sludge out. And the cells, they get wrinkled up like you wrinkle up a piece of paper with aging because of that and the glycation. And now they unfold. They start to come back. The cytoplasm goes clean and clear. And so now you don't have the glycation on the protein structures, and you don't have the cellular garbage, the lipofuscin that's there. So what's the last thing we do? And this is all within the H field. Then we have precursors to producing the single most important molecule, which life could not exist without it, and that's called NAD+, has a positive charge. That positive charge is hydrogen that's on it. So anyway, with that, we have precursors that go through, and there's 4 different pathways. Now, there are a few people doing it, and they generally follow one pathway. I want to hit all of them, don't you? So I have 4 different pathways coming down that is the internal biology of the cell, and I have super nutraceuticals in each one of these systems that are in our formula, and they go down and they collectively are coming together. This is our theory, hypothesis. Our formulas haven't been tested on this, but we can hypothesize what it's doing from what we see the elementary ingredients do and cumulatively together in their synergistic effect. So we go through, and now we can take NAD levels, it's like a light bulb. If you had a rheostat and you turn it down and it's very almost brownish and with a little glow, and you flip the rheostat and back up, man, that light bulb will be bright. And that's what happens with what we're doing. We take that NAD and support building so much of it that it brings the cell back into what they call homeostasis, which means perfect balance. And it comes back into that, and now that NAD is only a couple of steps from where it releases hydrogen. They call it biological hydrogen. That biological hydrogen is then converted to electrical energy, and your whole body runs on electrical energy, and it's done right within the cells themselves. Not just the stem cell, of course, but the other cells. But the other cells are out there. We'll let them go. There will be some improvement, but they have a lifetime. But stem cells literally are immortal if you take care of them. If you can speed those systems up to where they can function like when you were a teenager or in your 20s again, you're going to be marching back in time with this thing. And it's entirely possible to do that because as you're aging, this energy goes down and the cells are deteriorating, and now it's a restoration of things with a regeneration of the functions, and now, boy, your bulb burns bright. And so you start feeling more energy. You start repairing, you start fighting disease. Disease is caused by decay and degeneration. That's where it comes in, and nobody dies of old age. People die of a disease. Because if you're 80, that isn't old age, that's middle age. So what I'm telling people right now, 90 may be the new 60 if you're there. But who knows? Where pretty soon 100 might be the new 50 with this science and things we're doing. So we have all that to restore the cell, and that's the H pill. But the cell is controlled by telomeres. Telomeres are the tips on chromosomes only found in stem cells. And what they are is they are the ones that every time the cell has to divide, gives up part of themselves, so it has a matrix to follow the stem cell so it can create a duplicate of itself without telomeres. And then when that cell divides, those telomere units go with it. They're lost. And so the faster your telomere units go down, the slower the rate of your duplication is. It's like your biological time clock. So when you get down to where, when you're born, you have about 10,000 telomere units. When you die, you've got about 5,000 or 6,000 units left. That's how it's calculated. So if you can take those that are declining and you can support very long telomeres or the rebuilding of telomeres back to where they were when you were like a teenager again, now it's called the igniter. And so you don't want it igniting like a person, and they're old, and older persons, say 60 or 70 years old, and it's click, 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 click. No, what you want to do is click, 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 just like that, like it's doing when it's young. And if you build the long telomeres, it will tell the cells to divide more rapidly, and it will control that rate. And it all comes back from, some of this research is from cancer cells. They become, they're immortal. They have cancer cells that are 150 years old in a petri dish, and they feed it nutrients in the right environment. They never die. They just keep growing and growing and growing with that and duplicating because their mechanism is broke. So what happens when that does some response, because of the mutagenic damage to the DNA that occurs with the cancer cell, is they now increase the rate of repair and regeneration. And so they're removing the glycation, they're removing the lipofuscin, they're building those telomeres back, and that's why cancer cells are immortal until they kill you. They just crowd out other cells. So that basic philosophy, if you take those components, you won't get cancer, because cancer is caused by decay with it. But with these, you will be able to fight that. You'll be able to regenerate it. So now you have telomeres that are there, that are these master controllers of the stem cell. So the last one is you reach a certain point in the life of a stem cell to where its functionality goes down. It might be 100%, then 50, then 20, then 10, then 5, and then it becomes dormant. When they're dormant, you start building up all of these dormant stem cells. And if you're over 50, more than half of all your stem cells are now dormant. But they're not exactly dormant. They're not dead. They're dormant. And so they secrete the worst toxins, the ones that cause the most disease, the one that causes the most aging, and they believe they're doing it so it'll signal the immune system to come in and create a thing called apoptosis, which makes the cell die. It's like cellular suicide of dormant stem cells. Cancer cells can be worked the same way too. They have some treatments they're trying on that to create apoptosis in cancer cells. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about dormant stem cells that used to be producing hundreds of millions of new cells, now are burned out, but they're still alive and they're oozing toxins, so the immune system can follow it in and trigger apoptosis. The problem is the immune system is old too, so it can't function and properly, and it misidentifies these cells. It bumps into a cancer cell and doesn't kill it because it's lost its ability to identify it. So in doing so, if you're bringing the HPIL back and these types of things, and you bring the immune system back up, then man, it's really sharp and ready to go. But where are you sitting with all these dormant stem cells? You have a carpet of them. And it's like a flower garden. If you had roses, and this is a comparison I use with it, you could have a beautiful rose garden, clear full of roses, but you have to do one thing to make it work, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So anyway, with these dormant stem cells, we now are bringing out product X, which has two spectacular ingredients in the high concentrations, researched by probably the most premier research facility in the world, and they're trying to find a product that will do that and that will take it and they can make a synthetic drug out of, but the ingredient occurs in nature. And so we can extract it. We can concentrate it. We've gone to people that will do it, and they're doing it for us. And now what happens with this ingredient, it goes into senescent stem cells. And what it does, it supports the process of where the stem cells will die, wither up and go. Now, that's good because you don't have those toxins throughout your system. But what's even better is the stem cells that are dormant are in a bud, and they will produce they have the potential to produce a new stem cell with that. So you take an old dormant one that's toxic and causing heart attacks and cancer and diseases and Alzheimer's, all these types of things that are going on, and the body will remove it. The cell will remove, the body will remove those dormant cells and replace them with new ones. So now we come back to the rose garden. With the rose garden, if you want roses all the time, you can see in the spring come out there, oh, they're all beautiful and blossom. Then over a short period of time, the leaves start falling off, and then you have less and less and less of them that are there. But if you want a beautiful rose garden, you go, the ones that have become dormant, you snip them off. It creates a new bud, which creates a new flower. And as long as you keep doing that, you've got all these roses and colors that you want in abundance like they are, and you can maintain them that way. So this is where product X comes in. It comes in to support the biology of that, to support it's called senolytics, Senolytics, if you want to know that. But it's called senolytics. And so it comes in the senolytics, and it takes these dormant stem cells. Well, it provides what the body needs to remove these dormant cells. So the inactive ones that are oozing toxins now commit cellular suicide is the term. They do it. It has its own mechanism to do it. It just needs nutrients that the body takes and converts into other biological factors that push the switch that causes the cell that is now dormant to wither up and die. The interesting thing about it, does nothing with normal cells at all. It only goes to the ones that are dormant. So now where you're sitting, let's say you're sitting out there and you got 20% activity and 80% dormant. You can imagine what a field of flowers would look if 80% of them had lost their leaves and down. And now you have ability to go in and every other day. I'll tell you how that works later. But anyway, you have the ability to go in and supply those ingredients to it so that you are repopulating with young stem cells and getting rid of all the toxic old ones. That's the hypothesis, the optimal result you want. And so now that field of flowers starts to blossom again, and that happens within your body. So here we are. It's almost like a resurrection, except they're not dead. What they do is gets rid of them, and then a new one comes out, and suddenly where you had nothing except toxins, now you got a new stem cell creating more new stem cells. So isn't that something? H pill takes a declining one, returns it back to where it's like it was younger again. It supports the ingredients so the cell can do it itself. With dormant stem cells, which are so toxic and damaging, they're the worst thing in your body. You can go in, and the body has the ability to remove those if you put the proper precursor factors in there, so it removes them, and just like you clip the bud on a rose, up comes a new stem cell that starts to duplicate like you were a teenager again with it, and so you're starting to restore all of this big bank of healthy young stem cells. So there's the two approaches. H-pill to catch the ones that are in decline, precursors to support it so that it cleans itself up and goes back into full momentum. Then the TSX comes in, and instead of losing all the telomeres are long, and now the duplication rate keeps very rapid. But with the stem cells that have worn out, now you can come in there, and the body has the ability to get rid of them and to regenerate a new stem cell. and it's done with natural processes. It just takes spectacular ingredients to feed those systems with what they had when they were young, to a large degree. That's part of the theory on this. And suddenly, the ones that most of you, if you're over 40, you're over half gone, and so with stem cells. And so now you have a chance to bring back more and more and more and more. So that's how Product X will work. Now I'm to the end of my time here on it. Get a little carried away with some of this. But with that, this is really blazing down the highway to immortality. Age feels up there operating like crazy. Dormant stem cells are removed, and the body produces new ones. So now you have more of those on that highway to immortality, and you have the telomeres, which is like a rubber band in an airplane. You can wind up the propeller and throw it, and it goes pretty good at first, but then as it starts losing its coil, its energy, then it goes down, and the plane crashes with that thing. Well, now if you could keep that rubber band rewinding continuously, that plane could theoretically fly forever. That's what telomeres do. Those cells just duplicate at a tremendous rate. It never stops with it. That's the hypothesis, the theory behind it. We believe it works. We believe the science is there. Which doesn't believe. There's a lot to this. But here you go. Stem cells with the age pill restored. In our objective is as close to as normal as possible. The telomeres to keep it going as fast as possible to take the dormant ones, and it takes the dormant ones and then brings them back to where they're like their young ones again. So now the other products like the H pill and TSX you take every day. With Product X, you will take it every other day. And the reason why, it's like a bombing run. It comes through there and it hits those dormant stem cells. It doesn't do all at once. Of course, you'd be sicker than a dog, but it comes through and it takes proportionately numbers of those. And when they do, they self-destruct, but then the body has to come in and clean up the debris. So that's why you take one day and clean up the debris the next. One day to support the body so it can destruct, and they go into pieces and they get gobbled up and removed. So you do it every other day. One day bomb, the other day clean it up. Bomb, clean it up. That's the way the thing works. Now that product's going to be out in less than 60 days on it. And I will tell you what, this will make, we are so far ahead of anyone even without that. But now what we're going to do here, we're taking light speed, and we're taking it, if you're a Trekkie, we're taking it to warp speed. You're going to blaze on to health and regeneration. Go to MeWe.com, and that's on my page that I've set up there. And you can go there, and you can see the results of the senolytics that's happening in Product X with 2 mice. They were litter mates, both old and shriveled. They gave just the restoration of the dormant stem cells because of the ingredient that fed the systems to do it. And the one mouse that didn't have it is old and decrepit and small, and the other looks like a healthy young mouse. And those biological processes are exactly identical in humans. And now they've been doing human studies on it now, finding the same kinds of effects, except we got a lot more cells in our body. So that's what we got going. That's a lot to talk about, and that's really only 3 products. I talked about some of the other factors, but who has anything like this? Who has the 1, 2, 3 hit? Restore the declining stem cells. Speed all of them up to full maximum power and duplication, like when you were in your 20s again. In other words, return your biological factors back to where you were in your 20s, and what's going to happen to your body. Now the ones that have been lost, that are dormant, that are damaging you, are now restored. They're gotten rid of and replaced with all of these new ones. So now you're starting to get the numbers back of the stem cells you had when you were in your 20s. Those are the potential goals that we have for these products. So you regenerate and repair, you speed it up, and you restore those that were lost. That is powerful. So anyway, I've gone over. Apologize for it. But tell me this isn't something that you can't build a flippin' fortune with. You can. But right now, we have got it. No MLM does. You have no competition. Pharmaceuticals will be 10, 15 years out before they come, and terribly expensive. Now, for reasonable prices, you can have extraordinary health. You can live to a great length of life at a very young age, and why not? Get off that slippery slide to death and get on the escalator to life, and that's what these three products will do. So I'll turn it back to you, DW.
Absolutely awesome. Everybody is just grinning like a porcupine.